Mags, welcome to the Freedom Footprint Show.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Great to have you here. How are you enjoying the conference so far?
I love it. Oh my God. So it's just like everyone the same on all the podcasts. It's like everyone the same at all the conferences in North America, which is great because you make a lot of friends. But here it's like there's people coming from Africa, right? Which we don't normally get the chance to interact with. And there's so many exciting mining projects that are opening up there that are like, I think the most interesting things in mining is the places that have no electricity getting re-electrified and like changing people's lives. So being able to interact with those folks and the folks that really need Bitcoin because they don't have access to bank accounts, right? What's happening with Fedi over there. So being able to interact with those folks is what makes a conference like this special. Plus, like, Prague is beautiful. So I'm a huge fan of the Prague conference.
And you have roots over here, right?
Yes, and I get to visit my grandparents after, so another bonus.
All right.
Can you give us the TLDR on Mags?
On Mags, yes.
On Magdalena Gronowska.
Oh, very nice. Professional.
Did I dox you now?
No, it's fine. I self-doxed, which in retrospect, maybe it wasn't the best thing. The partner's always like, great, people are going to come to our house and murder us. No, but you know what I mean? It's like,
hopefully not.
What have you brought on us? Because you love attention. So the age of 5, we escaped communism. I didn't, I was a little kid, but my parents escaped Poland. I mean, communism is never great, but I remember them telling me stories about how, you would line up for 5 hours to like 2 days on Christmas to get like a Christmas ham. So, there's stuff like that. And I remember growing up to when I would later visit and like I was looking at the money, right? Because we had a period of hyperinflation in Poland, right? For a little kid, it didn't matter. You're like, you see this like money and you're like, oh, wow, look at all these zeros. Right? You're like, ooh, this is great. It's like, no, it's not great. You don't understand why it's not great. But, there was a lot of really negative things. But, and I think that's why the reason why I start with Poland is it's my story, right? It's my Bitcoin story. I think everybody needs to find their story. Like, yes, I started because number go up.
Yeah.
That's how some of us get into it. But then you go down that rabbit hole and you find those intersections of why it really means something to you. And why it means something for me is because my parents packed everything they had in their car, right? And we had like a Fiat car, as in...
Yeah, it's in the car, bruh.
Those cars were tiny, so you can't take a lot of things. And the government messed up. They gave everybody a passport. Normally, they would give like one parent and a child, right? They would never give the whole family unit, but it was like winning the lottery. They gave everybody a passport. So we're like, we're going on vacation, right? So we arrive at the border. They've got their, big guns. And my parents are like going on, like a trip. And the lady looks at them and she like looks in the car and she's like, you're not coming back, are you? Like, do we lie? You're like, no, we're not. And she's like, just go, right? And they're still like worried, are they going to start shooting at us? What? So, basically everything that you can, it's not the same as like someone running away from a war, but it's still like, this is our life and that's all we can take. And maybe it might get taken at the border. So what can you take across the border, right? And so looking at that story, it's like, that's part of like understanding, assets that you can move with you. And another important touch point is my grandma, from my dad's side, she had this beautiful garden, beautiful house, like family legacy that, typically goes through generations, that gets passed on. But after the war and the borders fell, Poland's border shifted and, government strike of a pen shifted and she lost, like she had to leave the country because it became, Tarnopol became Ukraine and they couldn't, like she couldn't keep her house. She just lost it, right? And they kicked them out. And so she lost her childhood home. There's no way to get back. And also like that, like I said, generational wealth. Like, I mean, we didn't have much, but at least there was house and land. And typically those are the types of assets that you can own, right? So that again, same thing. Can it be confiscated by governments, your wealth? Well, sometimes it can. Traditional assets, right? But not Bitcoin.
No, there were no 12 magic words back then.
There was no 12 magic words.
The words would have been please, 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 please.
Right? Or like here's some cash or something. And then the last touch point is on my other grandparents' side. So my grandpa's grandpa, he was an artist. And actually he's a well-known artist if you look at like Polish art history. You know, his paintings are sometimes sold in art galleries or at auctions. And so my grandpa had some of his art in their house, but during the war, there was bombings. So sometimes you had to just leave the city because it was unsafe. So they locked the house, left for several days or weeks. But when they came back, you know, the door had been broken down and all the paintings were gone. And then he would, you know, walk around the city like after that. And in art galleries, like art stores, he would see the paintings. And it's no different than like, so during the Holocaust, like there was a lot of stolen property taken from Jewish people that it's like, this is mine, but I don't have it anymore. And it's not like it's on the blockchain, right? Like blockchain is forever. It's permanent transaction that you can see that it changes ownership. Like there is no proof that this was yours. And you can't get it back. You can't be saying like, yes, this was, it's like, who are you, right? So it's really sad. And sometimes I thought about it, I was like, oh man, I'd love to buy him one, but they're not cheap.
No, I mean, theft is theft.
Theft is
regardless
theft.
of
Yes.
who the perpetrator is. I
Yeah.
mean, it's still theft.
Yeah. So, you know, that's what Bitcoin is to me. Like those meaningful stories is why one of the reasons I participate. And I think too, you know, when you try to bring somebody else into Bitcoin, I think you have to try to understand them a little bit and what's their history, because there might be these kind of touch points that resonate with that particular person rather than like, oh yes, inflation sucks, doesn't it? That might resonate with them too, but maybe not in the same way as someone who went through hyperinflation, for example, or someone who, you know, whose family escaped somewhere. And there's always something, and it's worth finding out their story to do that, I think.
Yeah. And that's just so funny because I'm sorry your parents picked a country that would eventually turn communist, and like, but the touch point here is that my dear friend Luke here had to flee Canada for the same reason that you once fled Poland.
Well, I didn't have to. Let's not over dramatize it.
Well,
with only the private keys in his hand.
maybe I'm over exaggerating. It's not actually super comparable, but there's a touch of truth in it.
No, I can understand. Damn it!
I'm allowed to go back to Canada. I think
allowed, but you don't want to.
I gotta find a third country. It better not be communist. But I actually live in like the most communist part of Canada. Like we don't even have a conservative party. It's that far left.
All right.
In
Which part
British
will that
Columbia.
be? I should know this.
It's basically like California, right? Like,
All right.
Yeah, and I've got a bunch of family on Vancouver Island and you know, Vancouver and everything, and it's yeah. But I mean, BC is nice. It's a nice place to live.
It's so hard to leave. Like I'm near the ocean. There's beautiful mountains.
Yeah.
Like
No, it looks awesome.
At some point, maybe it'll be.
So we were talking about before, you know, in the car ride over here that you've got the dual passport, right?
Yes.
You know,
On me.
exactly. Well, and that's the whole point, right? I mean, hopefully you don't need a third one eventually, but yeah.
But where?
Well, exactly. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
El Salvador, right? But
It's not ready yet. I visited El Salvador. I don't like it. They're making amazing progress, but some of the things like the electricity grid isn't like fully reliable yet. But like I said, you know, they're shoring it up. They're using some of the investment from mining to do that. But like right now, today, I don't think it's ready. My partner works in tech, and there's a lot of stuff that gets shipped to our house, like through Amazon Prime, for example, or UPS. And I was talking to some of the folks there. The logistics is not built up. It can take weeks to get goods. It's just not tenable for us.
But Argentinian passport seems like one of the better options right now.
I was talking to Luke Mikic earlier today, and apparently
I saw his video.
Exactly. The rule is you have to stay there for 6 months for 2 years in a row.
Yeah, so
Interesting.
2 years?
No, I think
I
6
see,
months per
sorry.
year, 2 years in a row.
Is it 6 months per year?
That's what he said.
Okay. So, and then you get it without having to pay like $1 million to get it.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Because it's is it 3 Bitcoin for no?
That's Antigua,
how many
I believe.
Bitcoin in El Salvador?
Something.
It's a
like
number
that.
of Bitcoin.
Yeah, no, and I think it's enough to
So
make
you're
an
right, it's $1
investment
million.
in the country. Yeah,
Yes.
but
Yes.
the payment for the super duper passport or whatever, Max Kaiser passport or whatever they call it, it's like $1 million, I think.
We'll say is the meat in Argentina. I visited Argentina for the first time actually this February.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it is ruined meat, asado, like the barbecue. It's just everything is grass fed. I was literally eating butter, like raw butter, like it's so good.
But grass-fed is such a weird term to anyone but Americans.
Pasture-raised, like
because
just,
we don't feed cows anything else but grass. What else would they eat? And it's in the U.S. they feed them corn. Like but it's a cow.
Yeah.
Why the hell would you feed it corn?
But you know what? So I talked to a number of Bitcoiners. Like I went to a Bitcoin meetup. They held an asado in my honor. It was so nice.
Oh.
But they were saying, what? No, you laugh.
No. It's your laughter that's contagious.
So I was talking to the Bitcoiners and they're saying like it's becoming more challenging. So I know everyone's very optimistic about Milei, right? Like he's putting in these changes. He's cutting government quite a lot. But the inflation, even like between November and February when I went there, because he got rid of all the subsidies, including like, for example, transportation, right? It's a huge country. It's like Canada, right? So when you're transporting food, once he got rid of the subsidy, things like, for example, rice, it went from 60 cents to $2.50 for a kilo of rice. Like their people make $300 a month. It's not.
Yeah, but what was he supposed to do? He needed to. There was a band-aid and it needed to be ripped off. Like there's no smooth way of getting out of that.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. But so I worked a decade in government actually. We're just going to go all over. So I worked.
This does not need to be linear.
I'm a reformed government worker before Bitcoin.
All right.
So I worked mostly I worked on low carbon economic transition. And a lot of that is decarbonizing our energy system. I also worked on electricity and electricity pricing. But part of that file was energy affordability and energy poverty.
All right.
So there's like a certain level of assistance. And I do think like, I know Bitcoiners talk about like, oh, we need to cut everything. And I'm like, there are, there will be people that fall through the cracks, right? Whether you're disabled or like, sometimes you need a little bit of help. I'm not talking about the folks that like just abuse the system, but I do think as a society, we should take care of some people. I think we go a little overboard, but there is like someone who has cancer who, like we used to get letters to the minister, right? And some of them like kind of stick with you. They're like, my wife has cancer and electricity prices have risen. So I'm choosing between food and electricity pricing, right? To feed my wife because I want to feed her quality food so that she can, recover better.
But still, I think I don't think there's a libertarian on earth that doesn't believe that society should take care of everyone. It's just that, like, we're against the forcing people to do that. Like, it should be voluntary.
Okay. But do you think there will be enough people that volunteer? Is, I guess, the question.
Yes, I do.
Yeah?
And absolutely, because I think the biggest misinterpretation is how much the state takes, what it actually costs. And people would be shit rich if it wasn't there. Like, if we didn't have inflation and if we didn't have taxes, everyone would be super duper rich pretty soon. Like look what happened to Germany just after World War II when they had this libertarian finance minister or whatever the title was, unsung hero that like made that country make the fastest comeback in history. Or Estonia is a good example too. They took Milton Friedman's playbook, and he's not even a true libertarian. Mises called him a socialist, but but still, like, if you do sound economics, the country turns on a dime, and I believe that will happen to Argentina too.
And having worked in government, there is a lot of inefficiency, right? And
it's all inefficiency.
And well, some level, I think. Like I said, we'll figure it out.
You might be understanding what you're getting into here.
I think, maybe there's like a nuance or something, or maybe I don't fully. Okay. But what I will say is that if you, so yes, I've seen inefficiency, right? And also government is really bad at picking winners and losers, and they should not, right? So
who are they to tell?
And also if they're like, oh, well, these people deserve money, it's like, yeah, but it's your cronies, right? Like I've seen, because the further up you move in government, the more that you see, it's really about buying votes. And literally at the table, one of the reasons like I laughed, it was because they were like, which policy do we choose that's going to get us reelected? Oh, bike lanes. People love bikes. Like, it's such an inefficient spending. So that's what disgusts me. And I wasn't a good fit anymore.
No, but that's the thing. Like, if it's based on theft, like in the base layer, it cannot not be corrupt. Like, you cannot not have a corrupt system that is based on violence and threats thereof. Like, and that's because where do you draw the line, and who's to say what's good for another person or not? Like, from a strict autistic non-aggression principle perspective, it's all corrupt. Like, you're not entitled to tell me what I do with my stuff. Like, it's that simple.
Yeah. So I helped put in cap and trade in Canada. Or sorry, in Ontario, cap and trade. Carbon pricing.
Oh, okay.
But it got it. It's different from a carbon tax. It's much more of a market-based mechanism.
Okay,
which is more efficient than just
Captain
a tax.
Crunch, because whenever South Park makes fun of Canada, there's Captain Crunch involved, and like the cereal. Yeah.
No, and so that's like the stick, right, where they take the money. But then initially I did that, but then I was like the carrot, like, where do we reinvest? Like, that makes the most sense in terms of like biggest GHG reductions, except of course the politicians are like, but get us elected versus the highest GHG. So anyways, so the point is, like, countries are like, we need to, lower emissions X amount so that we can meet targets, but those targets keep getting shifted. And it's very frustrating because, I spent a decade there. And before that, like, there was the Kyoto Protocol and then the Montreal Protocol, and it just keeps going. So now we're going between, like, we're going to, net zero for 2030, then it's 2040, 2050. Now we're like 2060. Because the targets shift because the politicians are too afraid to put in the kind of stringent reductions that are needed because they're going to get voted out. So it's just kind of like being in that system. Hold on. I'm still talking.
Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't about to.
Oh, you're like when you're jumping in.
Yeah.
No.
That was me holding back.
Okay. So we need reductions made, and it's not going to come from the strict policies, right? And the capital, there's trillions of dollars that need to be reinvested, for example, to decarbonize, to switch towards renewable fuels, maybe build out nuclear, like less carbon emitting. So there's trillions of dollars. The private sector hasn't delivered. The public sector hasn't delivered, and their targets get moved. Well, I like the really crazy, cool intersection and why I love what I'm doing now is I'm at Bitcoin mining, right? It's not killing the planet. It's actually filling that gap. So instead of two pockets, right? Ratepayers, which are the users of the electricity system that pay into the system, or the taxpayers. Usually that's how infrastructure gets built, because for bigger projects like nuclear, where it's billions of dollars of investment in a giant nuclear plant, so you have ratepayer and taxpayer dollars. In that case, we have a third pocket, which is Bitcoin mining, right? And that is just a beautiful, elegant system of market economics that are actually causing us to reinvest in new infrastructure, because it's, for example, in Africa, right? It's a lot. There's stranded power that's inexpensive, and we're helping build out the renewable infrastructure. We're co-locating sites in Texas that are transmission disconnected, and it's expensive to build up the transmission, but they're all waiting for that day where they get connected. But in the meantime, they're not earning because they don't have a big load to connect to. Or you put a miner next to them, and suddenly they're getting paid, all every day, and it's a predictable revenue stream. So perhaps for the next project, they know there's a miner coming. They can maybe scale it up a little bit bigger as the population builds out. So we are funding it effectively from this third Bitcoin pocket, right? Mm-hmm. And so we're building out low carbon infrastructure. And I think that is so beautiful that it's a market-based mechanism, and we're doing good.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's doing the thing, but doing it right, which is in a profitable way.
Yes.
Because otherwise, it's just fake. It's just a charade. Like, and I mean, the goalposts are moved because they're impossible.
Yeah.
Like, you
they're
can't
not. It's just everyone would like, oh my God, the carbon tax is so high.
They're not impossible very locally somewhere. But like, have you seen Konstantin Kissin's talk from the Oxford Union, where he talks about this and like, I mean, there are billions of people in the world who don't have a refrigerator, don't have a washing machine, don't have a dishwasher, like all sorts of stuff that we have, and they are not going to like deprioritize. They are going to prioritize getting those things above getting to net zero. Like you're not
yes,
going to.
Of course. It's not fair for them to. Like,
no.
They deserve that.
And I love the fact that Bitcoin is actually, functioning as a suspension mechanism and eating up the stranded energy and stuff. That's beautiful. But the real kicker is like the real environmental thing is quality over quantity. It's sound money. It's stopping the world from misallocating resources, which is what governments do by fucking with the price mechanism. This is like communism didn't fall and didn't collapse because people didn't have an incentive to work. Everyone thinks it's about the incentives, but everyone had an incentive to work. They have a gun through their head. You're going to work. Like
the wrong kind of incentive.
Yeah, that is an incentive. But it's the price mechanism. If you fuck with the price mechanism, no one knows what to produce and when and where and in which amount. So that is what is wasting resources. If you print money, you incentivize everyone on Earth to overconsume, and that is what actually kills the planet. Like consumerism, or bullshit consumerism,
cheap,
more and more
things too, right? Like I think as Bitcoiners, like and also as I've gotten older, I appreciate buying a quality piece of furniture or clothing that will last me, right? Instead of this cheap fashion that just gets chucked, like, doesn't like start to fall apart within the year.
Generational furniture.
Hey, look, why did the chicken brush his teeth? Why, Knut?
Do chickens even have teeth? To get to the BitBox on the other side of the road.
What a fantastic idea. The BitBox is our favorite hardware wallet for a lot of reasons. It's easy to use, apparently also for chickens. BitBox cares about your security and your privacy. They take measures to make sure they're not collecting more information about you than they need to. And they also have fantastic customer support. They get rave reviews. So if you have any issues with your BitBox or you don't know how to use it for some reason, then they can help you out and take care of you.
So go to bitbox.swiss/freedom or use code FREEDOM for 5% off your BitBox right now. Hey, Luke, what's the difference between a chickpea and a Bitcoin advisor?
What, Knut?
I never had a Bitcoin advisor on my face. But you could have one in your face because we're Bitcoin advisors.
That's right, Knut. We're working with the Bitcoin Advisor, and we're all about securing your Bitcoin for the long term. The Bitcoin Advisor has a collaborative multi-sig solution so that you can secure your Bitcoin for the next 20 years and beyond. Even if you lose one of your keys or something happens where it's an inheritance situation, they've got you covered and we can help you get there. So go to thebitcoinadvisor.com for more information, or you can reach out to us and book a call so that we can explain everything to you ourselves. Doesn't that sound awesome?
Sounds absolutely spectacular. It's basically boating accident insurance, isn't it?
Exactly. Although, boating accidents, well,
you could have boating accidents anyway. Like, I mean, whatever.
Go to thebitcoinadvisor.com today.
Do the things.
So that's why, circling back, the coolest projects that are happening in Africa are the ones that are electrifying. Like previously, there's people that had no power. They couldn't charge their cell phones. They had to walk 2 hours to get water. They, it's dark. I can't study. I'm just going to go to sleep, right? So you're changing, and it's such a simple thing, but you're changing their lives. Like now the clinic can stay open like at night and do an emergency surgery, not by candlelight, but by light. And I think, it's so powerful how we are helping humans become better, like increase their standard of living. So I think those are pretty cool. And then, and I also love how mining is integrating almost every facet of society. I call it Darwin's finches, right? Every miner, and I do, because Darwin's finches optimize for different niches, right? You have the ones that eat nuts. And their beaks are very different from the ones that eat insects, that eat fruits. Yeah. And so I find that miners are doing that because there's those miners that are going, developing stranded parasites. Then there's those miners that are taking methane from landfills, right? So they're in effect getting free energy, the methane that a landfill produces, capturing it and burning it, combusting it. And the byproduct is it's a positive externality from the environmental perspective because methane is 84 times more potent of a greenhouse gas than CO2 when you burn it. So there's a positive environmental aspect. I advise a company called PRTI, and we take waste tires, which are normally landfilled in North America. Increasingly, though, landfills are banning tires because they leach toxins into the ground and also volatile organics and other pollutants. These toxins go into the air. And so we get paid for the tires. Sorry, what was that?
They're tiresome.
Oh my God. Bum, bum, bum.
This is what you get when you deal with Knut, yeah.
You're a dad, right? Dad jokes?
I am a dad, yeah.
So we take the tire, we get paid for it, we put it in a vertical refinery, vertical reactor. It's I think of it kind of like a refinery where we tap off gas, synthetic gas, which is like methane. There's an oil that we put in a diesel generator for power. There's a black carbon type of product that has BTU content, and 25% of a tire is steel because that gives the rigidity to a tire, when a car is riding. And so those are 4 products that could be sold, or we can use the energy to mine Bitcoin. And there's optionality, right? Because during bear markets, maybe you don't want to do that. Or the oil, you can further refine it into a more valuable byproduct, for example, a cleaning agent, and sell that for $80 per gallon instead of, let's say, 4, right? And different markets too. Like if you're in an island state like Hawaii, waste is expensive, right? Most of it you have limited space. Maybe you have to incinerate. And then also energy is expensive because how do you get energy if you don't have a natural supply? Or maybe you're not El Salvador and, have a volcano. And so in that case, maybe it makes sense just to use it for power. Whereas other places, where electricity is a lot cheaper, it makes sense for you to mine Bitcoin directly. So I think it's a cool project, and it's everyone's really focusing on net zero. There's other projects that have other environmental or social benefits that I think too we should pursue. So that's like another, right? Like, so here we are fitting in another niche. And then of course there's like the giant miners, the gigawatt miners, but then they're shoring up the electricity system, for example, in the US, where they're participating in demand response programs, right? So that's a different niche that they're filling.
Yeah, because I wanted to get your take on the miners that are still going off of non-renewable energy sources, coal and et cetera.
We've really declined in the use, because here's the thing. Fossil fuels are expensive, like gas prices, right? They fluctuate. You need to have, and prices have been rising, and it's a so if you are an operator, right, you're continuously buying a commodity that changes in price. And yes, you can hedge it as well. But if you have built out a renewable part of infrastructure, right, there's no marginal cost of power, right? So, and costs have fallen of renewables versus like coal. Coal will always be still kind of cheaper, but I have seen in recent years, we're getting pretty close. And also I think miners have, I think we're over 50% now in terms of that are renewable or non-carbon. So the places that are still using things like coal, there's some elements of China, maybe Kazakhstan. It's not, it's shifting away anyways.
Yeah, so that's the trend in Bitcoin, but the overall trend is coal is still the fastest growing.
Oh yeah, in China. And I mean, it's the crazy part is they shut down their nuclear plants. I'm from Ontario, where 50% of base load originally was
it's power.
Here's my foot.
Exactly. Oh, Jesus, bad policy, right? They overdo it, right? They're just oh my God, this happened. And now suddenly we don't have nuclear for 20, 30 years. I was actually a child when Chernobyl happened in my communist Poland. It was very hard to get iodine. So my parents, we were they wanted, because I was very little child, and they needed to get iodine for me to make sure that I didn't get the radiation. So luckily had a nurse friend that was able to provide it for me. But otherwise it was
it's horrible. So
story, yeah.
I've changed back and forth on nuclear for so many times because to me, it's absolutely crystal clear that from a physics perspective, nuclear is vastly superior to everything else. People
other than dark matter, I feel at the energy content per.
but energy content, a liter of plutonium is 5,000 barrels of oil or something insane, in it. Yeah. It's absolutely insanely much better than everything. But then we assign politicians to handle this, and then from a human action perspective, this is bullshit.
But I thought you cared about carbon.
And it leads to, if not Chernobyl, it leads to environmentalists coming and screwing up the party and turning everything off. So that it's just a big cost because it didn't have its lifespan, because it needs to run for 50 years because it's a big investment. So that's the I say go micronuclear and like a flux capacitor in the basement of every nerd's home. Like that's the way to go.
Flux capacitor plus a Bitcoin miner. Exactly.
Yeah. So you can
just one, many miners.
No, the flux capacitor is so you can go back in time and mine on older blocks. Like
I use miner like a unit. Like this is coffee. You know, it's a miner it can be used for a singular or a plural.
Yes.
You should have miners in your basement, not minors. Like that's. Well, it can be misinterpreted. Like I need to explain that one. Yeah?
Don't. Shoot, where was I going? Oh, okay. So, but no, you raised an important point because like coal, right? It's not just GHGs; it's also toxic air emissions that get released, right? And so, smog days happen, and people die from smog, like the elderly that are more vulnerable. So there's like multiple side effects, right? From coal. We had acid rain, although actually the acid rain program was a cap and trade program and that one worked. Like, yes, I know. They put it in, they capped it. And there used to be a lot of acid rain in, especially kind of around like Michigan area, because there was a lot of coal plants and also like industry used a lot of coal. So it actually worked because they set the targets right. And it was lowered.
Can you give a quick explanation of how the cap and trade thing works? Because first of all, Knut definitely doesn't know how it works.
I don't live in the U.S. like that.
Well, no, hold on. Europe implemented cap and trade, except that their targets were not. And she's like, we're going to go out of business.
We have Captain Crunch here too, but like I'm not into Captain.
Yeah. It was mispriced. Okay, sure. So basically, there is a cap on the amount of carbon that can be for like Canada or a country or whatever unit, or for the world. And so the amount of carbon is capped and everybody, you take a baseline. So you emit 10, maybe I'm emitting 5, you're emitting 100.
Mm-hmm. No, I understand the concept.
Yeah.
Like what happened to that specific...
ratcheting it down, right? Like, because you're trying to lower. And so either you lower yourself, so you implement some sort of technology that reduces carbon, but maybe for you, it costs $50. For you, it's $1,000 because it's really hard. Like the technology is not there yet. You're very limited, and you can implement some very cheap system where you can very easily switch to maybe biofuels or something, right? So you can choose. I'm a business. Do I implement this technology because there's a capital cost usually associated with it, or do I just buy this credit? Do you because it's super expensive for you? So instead of buying this $1,000 per ton, and for you it's $50. He sells you a credit and maybe he's only selling it to you for like $100. So you're like, $1,000 or $100, I'm going to buy a credit from him, right? And so, but that's just 2 participants. And then you keep adding participants and the carbon price like is set by a market. So you decide, you're like, well, it's costing, like the market says it's 40,000 for me, no brainer, right? Maybe for me, it's like, well, it's 60. I could be buying, but you know what? I don't want to keep spending every year, the $60 or whatever as it ratchets up. I'm going to do the capital investment, right? And at some point it'll pay back. So that's kind of like the cap and trade system, how it works. So anyway, they work for acid rain, but also we slowly started decarbonizing, right? And so, but where I was kind of going with that is like no technology.
What do you
mean
by it worked for acid rain?
So companies were given like targets and they had to reduce, and they would either like pay,
reduce the things that were causing acid rain.
Exactly. So maybe they would put in scrubbers.
So yeah. So acid rain disappeared.
Yeah. Like it used to be quite bad.
Yeah.
And it's maybe in some places it's like minor, but it's not to the same extent.
Right.
Where like as it was in like the 80s and the 90s. So that's all environmental policy that worked, and the market-based mechanism that worked. Wow.
Well, from a certain perspective, yes.
But for carbon, there was a lot of like fraud too in the European carbon markets. Like there was fake credits being issued, and also the targets just weren't high enough because again, politicians are too scared. So it did nothing.
So I guess the thing is something like that. If it works for say acid rain or whatever it is, but it's still a government coming in and saying you have to do this, right? So is there a scenario where the government doesn't come in and do this, but companies will still?
Only if they're like, oh, I want to distinguish myself, and I think I will gain more customers by saying I'm green. Like there are companies, they're like, are green, and then you get people that are more affluent that are willing to pay more money for that, like, right? Because typically how that works, pollution is an externality, right? Nobody, like, it's a flaw in the market because it hasn't been priced in. So if I'm polluting, it's because there's no cost to me to pollute. But if you attribute, the reason why usually there's some sort of environmental cost, whether it's fines or something, it's to mitigate the behavior or adjust the behavior of someone like just polluting in a river. Why doesn't, it's so cheap for me, I'm in a chemical plant, for me to throw out these barrels. Why don't I do that? People do sometimes because they're like, there's no harm, like in especially in developing countries, there's no regulations, there's maybe no fines or no enforcement, right? That's an externality, the pollution that's being dumped. But typically in Canada or in the US, there is quite a lot of high fines. So
let me, because I got a very good point here. Because like trying to do this, solve these problems by introducing like a carbon tax or like a carbon cap, it's sort of like putting a Band-Aid on cancer. Because the thing that makes it profitable to, throw away old barrels and do all this destructive behavior is fiat money. Like if money is cheap, and that's why we have over-consumerism, like we talked about before, and wasted resources and all this overproduction of stuff. So if we don't fix that problem, then everything else is just like trying to force people into behaviors that when the bad behavior is in the base layer, the bad behavior is what's financing the politicians to solve the problems that is actually caused by the politicians by printing the money. So it's like fix the money, fix the world, as the expression goes.
I struggle to see how how sound money would stop people polluting, though.
I do.
How?
Because if you know that you have money that will grow in value over time, you're less likely to overconsume. In fact,
but that's just consumption. That doesn't. But
no, but this is the thing. My grandfather had a saying: "That which you can do without you own," which means if you can resist the urge to own something, you own that thing because you own the psychology, like you own your urge. So, and I think in the long run, having absolutely sound money leads more people to that insight. So I think more and more people will become like Jack Mallers or Jack Dorsey, who are billionaires who choose to live very humble lives.
Sure, but I mean, Jack still takes, he probably still drives a car. He takes a private jet somewhere. And there's still, so you need to produce like these things like jets and cars and fuel. Like he has a nice house. Like there's still some level of consumption.
I'm pulling examples out of my behind.
No, but I'm just saying, like, people will still consume. So you're not going to live on the beach nude, right? Like there's still going to be some production somewhere, and the companies are still going to be incentivized. Like it's just so much cheaper for me to just chuck that over there.
I don't think people understand to which extent fiat is causing these problems. Like let me combination devil's advocate and address, I think, the specific point you brought up. It's in the wrong place. This is where I actually think we've got a philosophical thing here.
Great.
Okay, so you're talking about the producers. Usually the pollution is not at the consumer level.
It's not. Yeah.
It's further upstream than that.
No. But
you're saying there wouldn't be as much produced because there's less demand.
No, the reason that producers produce stuff at all is because consumers want the stuff.
No, but you're always going to have food production, right?
Yes, but we're not always going to have aisles in the supermarket which have like 20 times the amount of food that is actually necessary because you sell more food if you do. Like that will not be the case on a Bitcoin standard, or at least to a lower extent.
But those aren't necessarily the polluting industries.
Yeah.
Seriously, that like this is they're just So is this part of the thing?
Yeah,
right?
it's not. So okay, so like to build a house, right? There's cement and steel that goes into that, right? You need metals for car or all our electronics that make our lives, a little simpler. Look at AI where it's growing. Like there's mass production of chips and units. Some of those industries, like if you look at rare earth metals or when you're pulling out, gold mining is quite environmentally destructive. So that's still going to be needed. And I get it. Maybe you're saying it'll be less, but there will always be bad actors wherever you are. And bad actors can include polluters. And where I'm trying to get at is the externality of pollution somehow needs to be priced in. And usually it's through regulation, right? So I don't think there'll always be bad actors. You need an incentive, some kind of incentive. And I don't know what that incentive model is, but government usually attaches a price to it, because without that price, they'll do it.
Well, okay. Let me take this argument, because like here's if you look at the smartphone, you have access to the internet, you have access to all the world's media, all the world's books, all the world's movies from your pocket.
Yeah.
Imagine now, for instance, that that everyone had the same access to stuff 30 years ago. That would require every single person to own all the DVDs or all the VHS. And imagine the amount of resources that would cost. So the efficiency of the smartphone is insanely good.
Oh, we're getting better. But now you have like the 2 billion people that don't even have like power and stuff. Now suddenly they're all getting phones. Like,
do you know, this was a number I read in Firefighting's Principles of Economics. So do you know, if the Earth was a Olympic-sized swimming pool, do you know how much of that swimming pool is quarries and mines where they extract metals?
Sorry, I'm confused though.
So if you have the entire Earth, and the part it's represented by an Olympic-sized swimming pool.
But are we talking about like the size of the mine relative to the size of the Earth? Or?
Exactly. The size of quarries and mines, total sum of quarries and mines on the entire globe.
I'm sure it's small, but that's not where I'm getting at. Like the pollution, it's not by size. It's still like the amount of metals that get released into,
Yeah, I get it.
But there's just one industry.
But it's like, it's three deciliters.
Yeah.
So in that pool.
Yeah.
So we're not running out of resources in any like sensible sense of the word. Like they aren't rare or scarce. Like the ones who sell them want you to believe that they're extremely scarce and finite, because that drives up the price. It's like, oh, we're running out of oil. And
it's just harder to get, so there's a bigger cost, right? Like
exactly.
You go for the cheapest
the free market solves for that. Like the price goes up. And sure, there are extraction methods which are more damaging to nature than others. Absolutely. But the way to fix that is not by fixing. It's not by the biggest consumers of everything, every pollutant in the world are governments themselves.
Yes, look at the military-industrial complex.
The military-industrial complex. That's the consensus mechanism of fiat. It's the greatest polluter ever. Nothing destroys the earth as world wars.
Yes.
So that's them. They're the consumers. They're the ones who are destroying the planet.
There's
literally
absolutely nothing productive in terms of like...
if you remove that, then like Jack whatever's private jet is not really causing that much damage. Even if the manufacturer of the airplane is Boeing and it's crappy at running the factory.
But what I mean to say is like maybe I'm cynical, but I'm not going to rely on the goodness out of every producer's heart. Like they're not going to all just, suddenly we're going to go to the highest environmental standard. Like if there's no regulation, they will people want to optimize for doing things like getting the most profit, whether that's in Bitcoin or in dollars. So if there is no mechanism, like market signal, whether it's a cost, like whether it's enforcement because I'm going to jail if I pollute, or it's a cost because I have to like achieve a certain standard. If you eliminate all these, I do think most people will just chuck things, because in the developing countries they do, right?
Yeah, but in the developing countries, they have even worse money than in the US.
Yeah, okay.
You see?
Well, we don't have anywhere to compare, but like...
Yeah, we do. That is the comparison.
But there is no utopia, and I don't think we'll ever agree on this. It's like flat earthers versus round earthers, because I really don't think everyone will just...
Who's the flat earther?
I think that's you. Debatable. But I don't think like... I really don't agree that people will not pollute. It's just...
No.
Yeah.
Okay. So
how do you manage it?
Another angle then. Okay. You say it needs to be managed.
Is it?
Because carbon is bad.
I'm not saying just carbon. Any pollution.
No. Any pollution is bad.
Yeah.
So who gets to decide what bad and good means?
Well, that's where typically government... Well, hold on. If it's killing other people because it's like toxic air emissions, then that's bad. If it's leaching into water and people are drinking it and animals are dying. Like that's,
absolutely.
Yeah.
That I would agree that that's bad. And most people would. So we don't have a disagreement there. But
I'm jumping in to calibrate you. How would you do it that in literally our anarcho-capitalist libertarian paradise? That someone else has the externality of that.
Yes.
Okay. Water. Let's do water. Easy one. How do you stop company X from dumping stuff in the water that's going to hurt the people downstream?
Well, you need there's clearly a crime there because it's a property rights violation. If I pollute the water that some other person is utilizing, that's a property rights violation.
Public good.
Not a public good.
But most, that's the thing. Like, okay, but hold on. So you're saying you need some laws?
Absolutely. Laws,
That's we're saying the same thing.
No. But laws are not do not necessarily mean public laws. Like they don't have to be enforced by the entity that has the monopoly on violence. So you're saying I can go shoot you because you killed my livestock? Is that sort of your world? I can only shoot you if you shot a friend of mine. Like, no, okay, but what I'm saying is, so you're polluting maybe his private part of the river, like, so then, like, how do you, like, you need something that says, like, usually it's government that says, do not pollute, right? There are countless pages of libertarian legal theory.
Yeah.
And
behind pollution?
I'm not gonna lay it all out here, but there are solutions to these problems. And the first and foremost, I think that the conclusion that the only way to do this is by forcing people to do this and that. That is like, how are you so sure that the way we're doing it now is more efficient than it would have been if private property rights were the thing?
We don't know, but like, I mean, so if you look at, so Trump came in, right? And he relaxed a lot of regulation.
No, but he was a communist. No, he's a communist.
No. Stop interrupting.
Hold on, what I'm saying is like, so there are parks that you couldn't, do resource extraction in, for example, and maybe you disagree, but what I'm saying is as soon as you relax things, they come in and they start to pollute on that land. They start to extract the land. It's okay. Argentina, right? There used to be like 50 years ago, 70% of forests are now like 5%. And this is like public forest. I don't think that's good. We are never going to regrow the rainforest because it took like thousands of years, hundreds of years.
Yeah, but everything you're describing is the result of crony capitalism, not capitalism. Because all of those things happen because in the paradigm of false money that could be counterfeited at will by the people in power. All of these problems happen because of government interventions, not despite them.
Yeah.
So the government intervening on certain things that, this wasn't very good. That's just like, it's like letting the pedophile be the babysitter. Like it's like letting the arsonist be in charge of the fire brigade. That's what it is.
We're like, pyros. We're all secret. Us firefighters, I think we're all secret.
Maybe let's pull this off this topic because Knut is literally he's going to argue this to death.
I know.
I'm never going to.
This isn't going to make for a good podcast if he keeps doing that.
No. So let's bring it to. Sorry, Luke, but let's bring it to. Okay, let's pretend that I think that reducing carbon is a priority that every person should have, and I could to some degree agree to that. That I have that personal opinion.
Yeah.
So let's just play pretend there for a while. Yeah, you had something?
Oh, okay. Well, no, I thought you were going to continue.
No, I was just going to if we're going to level this.
Oh, you're going to play pretend for a while. Okay, he's going to play pretend for a while.
I'm not playing pretend, but I have a tendency to always take the devil's advocate position and stuff also. So, that's part of it. Sorry, Max.
It's okay.
All right, Luke, let's talk about Riga. Why people should go to Riga this specific year. There is so much here. I mean, Riga Bitcoin Week this year is absolutely fantastic. It starts off with Noob Day, and following Noob Day, our own Infinity Day party at the basement bar, which is just spectacular. And there's a rumor going around that there'll be some free drinks or something. So that's just great. And after that, it's the Freedom Unconference, which is a Noster-themed freedom couple of days before the actual Riga Baltic Hunting Badger Conference starts. And after that, of course, it's BTC Pay Server Day. and there are karaoke nights and official parties and whatnot. So come celebrate Infinity Day and the launch of The Inverse of Clown World, our new book, in Riga this year. Of course, 21st of August. Use code FREEDOM for 10% off your Riga ticket. Don't miss this.
Couldn't have said it better myself. I have nothing to add.
You don't need to add. This was the ad.
Oh, okay. Back to the show.
Well, okay, so Knut segued us into this, you know, the arsonist and the firefighter, and we were talking about it on the ride over here. You're actually a firefighter yourself.
I'm a firefighter. Yeah.
How did this happen?
Fun.
Yeah.
I live in a small town, and one of the ways to it's really hard to make a friends or build community as an adult. I think I don't have kids. Maybe someday. How do you meet people as an adult? Most people already have busy lives, right? They have their kids they're taking care of. So, and how do you build community? And I think an easy way to do that is to join your local volunteer fire department, and also learn some valuable life skills. I'm licensed as a emergency management a first responder, right?
Yeah.
It's below paramedic. So, I mean, I think it's pretty valuable. I can, you chop your arm off or something, or you have a heart attack. I know how to respond to that. That's, your family, friends. I think it's a good skill to have, or you get shot, emergency wound packing. So that's one, but also fires are fucking cool.
You make it all sound so fun. You got a gunshot wound?
Honestly, I get to play with big toys like fire trucks.
Yeah,
I get to make cars into convertibles during training. I get to break glass. It's so much fun breaking glass. They're chopping cars. I don't know. I have this destructive streak. When you were a kid, didn't you break sticks or whatever? Yeah. So I get to do that. A beautiful car. Oh, sorry. Chop, chop, chop. Right. It's fun. I mean, obviously in the field, it's not always fun, but it's great when someone afterwards thanks you. I had a really, this is the worst day of my life. Thank you very much. Right. There's some pretty cool stories, but going in a burning building, especially during live fire training, or even when there's a fire, you're watching the fire just consume this. It's just so cool. So yes, it's cool.
Speaking of wasting resources and being bad for the environment.
It's so funny because I'm live. So I had live fire training last year in Oliver, British Columbia. And my favorite training ever was this. It's called a liquid fuel fire. So they were mixing in a giant pan that's probably the size of this room, jet fuel and diesel. And the firefighters that were just pouring these barrels in are just I had a picture of their faces. They're giddy. They're and then they would light this on fire 6 times an hour, a couple times, a day. And the black smoke would go up 10 stories. It's just funny because someone who came from Cardin, I'm that's what we're doing. But it is too, it's training, right? Sure, you can practice a pretend liquid fuel fire, but to see what you train in action, how it actually works, the techniques you use are something else. And also it's pretty freaking cool to see this wall of fire.
There's nothing that the smell of napalm in the morning, or what's the quote?
There you go. So yeah, no, I love it. It's a way I've built some of the closest relationships are either the wives of other firefighters or firefighters. And we've had each other's backs, right? We're there, on call, literally. And it's oh, hey, can you help me move or whatever? Yeah, we're there for you. So it's and it's become part of my identity. Yeah. And actually it's neat too, because I started I'm part of Proof of Workforce. So Dom Bay started that. He's a firefighter in Santa Monica. And what our mission is to, basically bring Bitcoin to pension funds, unions, especially. So we have now, I believe, 4 firefighter unions that self-custody their own Bitcoin. And I think that's really important because as a firefighter, you're actually exposed to a lot of toxins, like carcinogens, even actually the fighter gear that we wear, because it's fire retardant, it's touching your skin. You're actually getting a dose of carcinogenic whatever chemicals every time you wear the suit. So there is a high incidence of cancer among firefighters, above average than guys, as well as, PTSD and suicide is pretty high, heart attacks. So if I am a firefighter and I'm either volunteering or getting paid to do this as a job, I'm a volunteer, but some people get paid, right? and we're putting ourselves in danger, I want to make sure, especially if I'm getting paid, like this is my main job, that if I put my life on the line, that my savings that are supposed to take me through the rest of my life, provide for my kids, aren't eroded away, that I can retire. Because the worst thing is risking your life, hoping that, you're going to have something there and it just melted away.
Yeah.
So I think like bringing Bitcoin, whether it's to the union, who sometimes the unions provide like health benefits or and whatnot to firefighters, or for retirement, right? That's going to be there when they expect it because they undertook higher than average risks. So I think like that, for me, that it's meaningful and why I help participate. And some of the cool stuff, like yes, it's bringing it to firefighters and unions, but also like it was really neat. Is it in March, I think, we actually met with the Schwarzenegger Institute. Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Because we're orange pilling his staff, maybe down the road. Imagine Arnold ever got into like Bitcoin. That'd be pretty cool.
Stay humble.
Stay humble. Yeah. Stock songs.
Sell all your shares.
But I think like it's neat, like the folks that you get to meet and in life and try to align sort of missions, because Arnold is very like leaning towards environmental protection. So I think like there's an alignment, but there's always that misunderstanding that we always try to fight.
Did you meet him?
No, we didn't, but we met his staff. But I did go to his office and I got to like see all his props. Like it's pretty cool. We got to hold his like sword, like Conan the Barbarian sold his guns from Terminator and stuff. So all of us actually, Proof of Workforce held some of the things. We took a picture right in his office, like in his chair. Like, it was awesome. It was pretty cool.
Oh, great.
No, sounds like a great story. And then, I think we didn't actually cover how you got into Bitcoin mining originally.
Well, I think because I spent a decade working on low carbon economic transition and electricity markets and government, it's a natural fit, right? Because everyone's like, oh, Bitcoin's killing the environment. I'm like, actually not. It's helping fund renewable infrastructure. It's lowering pollution through a market-based, elegant mechanism. So I think that's like, it very much connects with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. I think the common thread here, because you've walked into a pretty on the anarcho-capitalist libertarian side. This is what we usually talk about, kind of thing. But I think it's great to not everyone has to be at that level on Bitcoin, right?
I know. I understand like who will build the roads. I can understand roads being built without government. I just don't understand how we're not. But
okay,
I'm not going to get into that. I just don't believe that people out of the goodness of their heart are just going to not. That one I have a harder time. Like roads are needed, but
yeah.
But the common thread here is that Bitcoin is actually doing the thing through the
market. Yes, exactly.
Absolutely. And I totally agree there. Like nothing is better for the environment than Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Like I made a video.
Bitcoin is clean tech.
Absolutely.
No, that's the working title of my book.
It is
fantastic.
Getting back, actually, so you had a comment about the industrial military complex being one of the most environmentally destructive. So actually, one of the reasons, so there's Bitcoin is clean tech from the perspective of it's helping like clean the environment, go lower carbon. But actually, circling like further out, Bitcoin is clean tech, because what is clean tech? Clean tech is using resources more efficiently, lowering pollution, right? Or improving social life. And so when we use Bitcoin as either there's store value or medium of exchange, right? Mm-hmm. So what are we replacing? Well, we're replacing the central system. We're replacing the industrial military complex, right?
The
whole war machine, which is very environmentally destructive, with a new system that's decentralized. But also from the store value perspective, traditionally we have used gold, and that is quite environmentally also, whether it's pollution because the mercury leaches out into the ground, or like the carbon or whatnot, right? We're replacing that too. So plus we're replacing banking and payments. So all those buildings and the banks, right? The buildings needed to be built. There's workers having lights on, right? So you're replacing the payment system. So there's like multiple parts that now don't need to exist, that aren't polluting. So that's why Bitcoin is clean tech, because it is just like, you're like coal versus biomass. One is considered clean tech. It's like, no, Bitcoin itself as a technology is clean tech because you eliminate a very polluting type of money and store of value.
Absolutely. And the biggest factor is replacing the consensus mechanism of fiat money, which is world wars.
Yeah.
bulletproof of bombs. It's what it is.
I know,
like,
it's pretty morbid.
it's absolutely horrible. Like there's no bigger crime than wars.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love that. And I hear sometimes like, Bitcoin is bad for the environment because it consumes as much energy as country X.
It doesn't, though, if you include the military complex.
Well, I would say that's a reason to shut down country X and not Bitcoin.
Yeah,
because that's the bigger. That's worse for the environment.
Yeah,
and the comparisons to the banking system as well. No one ever makes the comparison that Bitcoin uses X, but the banking system, the entire banking system, uses Y.
Yeah. And some people have done. There's been a few studies. I don't know if they've ever been published yet in a peer-reviewed article, because that's what seemingly like the public, like the New York Times or whatever, cares about. But if we do, like, those are the types of studies that we actually need, right?
Yeah, and so so the book that you're going to be writing here is going to take us through all of this, right?
Yeah. So there's like the replacing of that and the impacts, but then also just going through all the different case studies, like the Darwin Finch niches of like, here's all the really cool projects and how they're bettering the world.
Is most of what you're covering mining related, or that?
No, I want to focus on, I don't want to be like, there'll probably be a very short description of like what mining is, because there probably should be, but that's not the point. The point is to like, it's similar to when people say like, oh, Bitcoin is useless, right? And then you can talk about all the different benefits, and maybe Alex Gladstein, like whether it's the human rights or enabling access, like he wrote some pretty compelling books based on like conversations he's had around the world with people that are like, you know, everything is failing, money is failing. And so like, no, it's not useless. Here's all the things, right? And he wrote some pretty cool books that I'd like to like, oh, actually, there's this book that I would like to direct you to. I want the equivalent for mining, right? Not the whole like what mining is and how it works. It's like how it, like Bitcoin is clean tech kind of thing.
Yeah, what's it called? Check Your Financial Privilege.
Yes.
I read that
exactly.
one. It's great. It's based on like his articles, I guess, but it was great.
It's
and he's
fantastic.
written one after that, but about even more the IMF and stuff. So
yeah, that one is excellent. So that's exactly like equivalent. Like this is like, oh, you know, Bitcoin is not useless. Here's all the reasons why. This is like Bitcoin is not bad for the environment. For those people that say it is, here's all the reasons why it's awesome.
we definitely need way more of this debunking, basically. All the arguments for why Bitcoin is bad. You know,
but like I find out like a blog, people maybe don't take it seriously, but like a book, they might.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. Well, looking forward to this one. So
what was the name of it again?
The working title is Bitcoin is Clean Tech. We'll see if it sticks.
Yeah.
You know, a little bit controversial for some people, but
well, when it's in the final form, you'll have to come back and tell us all about it.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
There you go.
Is there anything else you wanted to bring up? Anything else you're excited about or on your mind?
I mean, I think generally it's just the reason why some of us work in Bitcoin is because we do see it like leading to a better world. It sounds kind of cliche, but like that's like, I get passionate about it and my eyes light up. Like I was working on custody for a while too, but I just my eyes didn't light up in the same way as when I talk about mining, because I actually, like, again, I worked in the government and it wasn't working. And then I actually see what miners are enabling, the types of things that we were trying to enable in government. And I'm like, yes, this is what I want to do. And then like, you know, Alana did her movie. She released her movie and I mean, I was in it, but I also watched, both that she did Stranded and then Dirty Coin, right? And seeing, so I love when people video, like have video evidence of the good, and like here are kids that now have access to electricity. Like those stories,
it's hard to deny.
Being told is incredible, right? Or saving gorillas. Like, I'm sorry, you don't want to save gorillas? Because like the coolest story out of Africa, I think, is Virunga National Park, which would have probably. So they have gorillas there and they have rangers that protect them because there's poachers, and it's not funded by government. You're like, see, only 1% of their funding comes from government. Most of it is tourism. But during COVID, like tourism died, right? And now it's still, even though tourism could be back, it's a very unsafe region because there's gangs there and they will literally shoot you and murder you. Like some of the mining workers have been.
Yeah, mistake you for a gorilla.
No, they just like, we're going to try to steal whatever you have, right? And so the park director had the idea to use the local hydro to mine Bitcoin. And that is currently providing $150,000 a month that is being used to pay park rangers, right, to protect the gorillas. And like, how beautiful is that?
No,
it's supporting like the build out of renewables plus gorillas. And then they're working on heat recovery for, they're making some chocolate, right? They're drying cocoa beans like on site from local farmers. So I think it's just like, it's beautiful, like heat recovery and yeah, that's the stories that I think that we need to tell to make normies understand. Sorry, normies, it sounds weird, but you know what I mean? Like, you don't tell them about like, oh yes, inflation sucks. You're like, no, like a powerful story is like us saving gorillas.
Yeah, the norm is not condescending. It means normal person.
Yeah.
None of us are normal.
No. You don't have to be a freak like us.
I feel like you almost have to be like, so I think in Bitcoin, because you need that hyper focus to go down the rabbit hole.
The laser eyes.
Laser eyes, yeah.
Max, fantastic to have you here. Is there any way you want to direct our listeners?
Yeah,
like
I think Twitter, I'm not technically, I'm usually on Twitter, crypto_mags. I'm on Nostr too, but you can get there through Twitter. It's a lot easier.
Yeah, get on Nostr, people.
Yeah.
Like, subscribe, and brush your teeth and get on Nostr.
Fantastic. Max,
thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. This has been the Freedom Footprint Show. Thanks for listening. Thank you.